You know, technical issues, bro. Technical issues. Okay, we are live. We are live. Yeah, I was. Hello, everybody. Welcome. No more nobody yet, Charlie. No more nobody yet on but what's up, everybody? Okay, there. Now they're rolling in. They're rolling in. Man, we had some technical issues. I was getting a little worried. In fact, let me make Charlie a co-host right now. Yeah, I was having, my issues. I did a speed test on my internet and it was so slow, Charlie. So I called Spectrum, and actually I was chatting with the Spectrum guy, and he couldn't help me. So on Saturday, I guess it was Saturday or Sunday, I went to Kukui Grove and I went to Spectrum. The guy checked my account. He said my plan is so old that the speed that I was connected with was at 50 megabits per second, which they don't even have that anymore. So he told me, no, uncle, no can be. I said, I ran the speed test. It came out to less than 70 megabits per second. He said, the minimum plan is 100 megabits a second. I said, I'm telling you. The guy told me my plan was only 50. So he pulled up my account. He thought, uncle, you got an old plan. We don't even have that anymore. So he upgraded me to the 200 megabits per second for $20 a month extra. So I get 200, it's like 240 megabits a second download and about 28 megabits per second upload. So the internet is blistering now. But anyway, all these years I've been messing with on plan that was so old, they don't even offer that. So
I had a plan. I know what you're talking about. And they told me the same thing. It was when you had the plan, when they was building the pyramids, I go, yeah, pretty much.
it was when I had the two cups and the string. Yeah, the two cups and the string. That's how old my plan was. Anyway, welcome everybody. I know I'm sorry for the delay. We had a little technical issue. My thing wasn't connecting to my brand new high-speed internet. Yeah, the one I paid $20 more a month for. Yeah, it was giving me difficulty. So we're hooked up. I got Charlie hooked up as a co-host. So if I lose connection, he's gonna take over. But anyway, aloha and welcome on this wonderful Monday night. Tonight we have a great show. Two senators. We got Senate President Ron Kouchi returning for an encore, as well as Senator Donovan Dela Cruz will be on. In fact, they're in the waiting room. I just want to say thank you all for joining us. Share. Now is the time. Share, share, share. Hit the share button, guys. Lots to talk about tonight, so we're going to bring them in. Oh, and by the way, we got confirmation. I just got confirmation for Wednesday night. Dr. What's his name? Murtada.
No, the angry doctor, Murtaza Akhtar.
Akhtar Murtaza. Akhtar
Murtaza. It's the other way around.
He's coming. He'll be on Wednesday night.
Akhtar.
Yeah, he's coming Wednesday night. We're going to adjust the time. He said, no, just keep it at the 7 o'clock Hawaii time. He'll make adjustments. So he's going to be an angry, tired doctor. But anyway, we're going to have fun Wednesday night, guys. All right, here we go. Let's bring in the senators. And there's the first one, Senator Dela Cruz. He looks tired. Man, you're working too hard, bro. And there's Senator Kouchi. He looks mad.
That's natural.
What's up, guys? Hey, thank you so much for sharing your Monday night with us. Much appreciated by not just Charlie and I, but our viewers as well. I'm going to put this up real quick.
Hey, Mel.
Share.
Mel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, I knew we was having Senator Dela Cruz on tonight, so just in case, I had my night vision goggles waiting. But look how bright he is tonight. Right on.
Yeah, he'd learned from the Senate president. Hey, go get one ring light.
Yeah.
Go get one ring light.
I have a banker's light.
Hey, that works too. That works. Anything works. But yeah, Senator Dela Cruz is known for the outside the bench with the moonlight. It's actually pretty cool though. It really is.
Yeah.
And the big mango tree.
I'm wearing my UH
Lychee.
Oh, lychee tree.
my UH shirt in honor of the volleyball championship as well as Colt Brennan's passing. Happy and sad moments for UH, but anyway, just wanted to show it off a little bit because I saw you showing your San Francisco 49er colors there, President. Anyway, what's going on, guys? Appreciate it again. I was going to turn it over. Senate President, why don't you give us, let us know how this show is going to go tonight.
Oh, no, we, or I had a chance to talk with you guys last week. There were some other questions. Donovan said, well, he had a conflict and couldn't join us. Let him know when. And so we just said, well, Monday, let's go do it. He was available. So I would just have him as the architect of the budget, just talk a little bit about the budget that was recently passed and really not just the hard work that he put in, but if anybody saw the floor speeches from the members, the various committee chairs all got up and were complimenting Donovan for the way in which he worked with each of them. And so there are times when members maybe feel that, the money chairs are driving and they don't have that much input, maybe perhaps in the past, but it was clear the appreciation from the members of the collaboration, that the WAM chair had with them and really how much, they got to help shape the subject matter areas that they were working on. So I just had asked Donovan to come here because he can better share the details of the budget.
Awesome. Well, we had Dr. Fauci and President Biden on. We bumped them because you could fire away, Senator, fire away.
So this was a exciting session. It was quite truncated. It was a 5 days shorter than we normally have, and the feds didn't come down with ARPA guidance till much later. So we initially started with a huge hole in the budget. We're talking at least 25% of our budget was going to have to figure out cuts or raising revenues or a whole bunch of things, but it wasn't going to be pretty. But because of the federal government, we were able to get $1.6 billion. So that helped us cover some of the shortfall. But as you know, we put quite a bit of that into paying our unemployment loan. So that didn't leave us much room. And working with the finance chair and working with all the subject matters chair, we were able to identify some cost savings, some reorganization. This was actually kind of a bold year. There were many issues that got resolved that in previous years, we had a difficult time getting to the end. But because of the dire situation, I think people were a lot more open to transforming part of government. The committee chairs worked really hard, and they're taking some of them are taking more crap than they deserve. But University of Hawaii is unfortunately talking about their shortfall because of the budget got passed. But it's not just the University of Hawaii; it's all the departments across the board that we had to make cuts for. Some special fund departments, they're okay. Highways, airports, boating, those kind of things, those departments are probably going to be okay because they had some special funds. But some of the other ones, education, higher ed, public safety, those departments we had a little harder time just because they're really reliant on the general funds. But we came out okay. I mean, the Ways and Means Committee had a very short time window from the time we got the budget from the House. We literally, I think, only had less than 2 weeks to pass it over back to the House so that we could go into conference. And this was actually kind of a smooth conference session. We only had 5 days, and I think because everyone realized how serious this was, we got a lot of bills passed working with subject matter chairs from the House, and we were able to finish quite early. Actually, we finished on Thursday, just a few bills left on Friday, and we're looking forward to working with the governor and having a healthy discussion on some of the ideas that passed.
Well, let me ask you regarding Mel. You said muted, Mel.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm sorry, Senator. So you started off by saying that there are some things taken care of this time that maybe in the past it didn't quite go how maybe it should. Knowing how hard you folks work, I guess the people of the state will have this expectation of attacking things in this manner. Do you think it can proceed that way, where you can, because you said you had a smooth, given the fact that everybody knew that there was so much on the line, that maybe that's the lion's den you folks are in, and then you folks are able to find a lot of places that you could fill up the pukas, right? But do you think going forward you have to work that way to get these kind of results?
Well, I'd like to think that because of the intensity of the session, a lot of people did create a level of trust between their counterparts within the committee. So hopefully all of that goodwill that was established this session is going to continue for quite some time. I'll give you a couple of examples of bills that passed which normally wouldn't have it, because ever since I've been in the Senate for about 11 years, it's come up and we've never been able to pass it. One of them was a procurement timeline. As far as when people try to appeal, we couldn't get the departments to commit to a limited time where they would be able to review and just make a decision. And that affects all of us. I have a couple of projects in my district, some road projects. A bid gets a protest. Now it gets stuck in the protest process. The department has it in their court, and they can take as long as they think that they may need. But then by the time the decision is made on the protest, the funds may not be enough, and so the project now stops, and legislators have to try to put monies back into the budget so that they can proceed. So that kept going on and on and on. But this year we were able to work with the government ops chair and some of the other committee chairs. Senator Kim, it was her bill, and this is one of her priorities, so that the departments now only have 75 days to make a decision on a bid protest. And if they need an extra 45, they can ask for a waiver. But we believe that that's going to help us get construction projects moving a lot faster. But that bill normally, in the past, we had a hard time passing. That's just one of the kind of bills that we hope will help business and will help get construction projects out.
Okay, thank you.
What's the feeling on the governor and his is there any expected conflicts along the way? I mean, with the governor, is he more apt to approving the budget, or?
No, yes, there'll always be some disagreements. He's talked about the HTA bill, but in spite of our efforts to do the best job we can, get all the legal checks, there is a frustration that sometimes on the back end, the Attorney General will say, oh, upon closer review, we don't think this meets constitutional muster. And we sit there going, well, why didn't you bring this up when we were holding the hearings and the bill was moving through the legislature, so we could have either corrected it, or if what we were trying to do wasn't legally possible, then, with that advice, we would not have, put the time and effort there, and we would have put it somewhere else. The other thing, though, is on the procurement area, there is some optimism that there was a little bit of movement. And so Senator Moriwaki, the chair of government operations, Senator Kim, Senator Dela Cruz, talked to me about assigning a committee to do some interim work and look at other aspects of the procurement code. So that committee has been formed. Is Senator Kidani the fourth one?
I think so.
Donovan, and then we have a minority member, so Senator Favela. So we have a 5-member committee that is going to be relooking at some other areas of the procurement code, and we hope we can be more efficient in how we do our work and ensure that bids are properly done, but awarded in a timely fashion.
Yeah, that would definitely help the process. I mean, I know in many jurisdictions on the local level, they put on deadlines for permitting.
Yeah.
That if the county couldn't get the permits out within a specific period of time, that the permit application was automatically approved, and that has seemed to work in other jurisdictions on the mainland. So I can see how that may be beneficial. Just curious, if what percentage of the budget do you think will be signed by the governor? What percentage may be vetoed? Does anyone even know yet?
Well, I haven't had any conversation with the governor or the budget director since session ended. I've heard some rumblings that they would have liked to see things differently. But as the president said, it's imperative that we work out a lot of these details as they're proposed so that we can build consensus. The governor has a different role than we do. We're trying to work, the committee chairs are really looking at within their purview of how things can be improved. In addition to that, every senator is looking at how they can bring things back to their district or improve the situation in their district. So that there may be some conflict with how we approach things and with what we're trying to accomplish and what the administration is trying to accomplish. That doesn't mean that anybody has something personal or nefarious. We just have a different way of trying to make sure we can make a difference for Hawaii and for the people who elected us. So I'm hoping that they see it the way the committee chairs and the senators have worked so hard to pass things and get our perspective before they make any knee-jerk reactions.
And then the law requires the governor to give the legislature and the public a heads up about what is on his intent to veto list. So I think his deadline to submit that to the legislature and make the public aware of what he's thinking about vetoing is June 26th. And then I do know with certainty that the 45 days he has with which to exercise his veto authority is July 6th. So we do have the members with a circle on the calendar. If we look at the intent to veto list, then we'll have a caucus. House will have a caucus, and we'll see if any of the bills on the intent to veto list are important enough that we would consider to come back in for session to override. That's rarely occurred, but we have come back before to override one of the governor's vetoes. So that's the process we have. So he has, since we've adjourned till July 6th, to work with his departments and the Attorney General to go through all of the 200 plus bills that were passed and make a determination as to what he intends to do. And then you'll see certain bills that they've reviewed that they are in agreement with. Then they'll have the bill signing, the press releases about those bills being approved.
I just wanted to go back to HTA though. So for all these years, the Hawaii Tourism Authority was on special funds. I mean, they had their or dedicated funding. They had 79 million dedicated to what they do. And the Department of Agriculture also had a process where they had dedicated special funds. They had the barrel tax monies, and those were never specifically budgeted. They were given to the department in lump sum. And the reason why I try to tie the two is in working with the House, there was a general agreement that everything should be reviewed, should be brought back to the general fund, and departments should ask for monies once they have a plan to spend it, so that we can discuss with them a plan or whatever they want to and hold them accountable. Just having the dedicated funding without a plan became a little difficult to continue in light of the current situation. I know Hawaii Tourism Authority doesn't like that, but it was a broad stroke. It wasn't only Hawaii Tourism Authority. Like I mentioned, Department of Ag ended up with this. It was a philosophy that we took generally where we could across the board. There were a few minor exceptions where departments ask us to budget their special funds. They just can't use it without us knowing. So that's where I think, even though you have specific industries or specific departments maybe disappointed or very upset about it, it was a broad stroke as far as how are we going to approach this philosophically. And it was more about accountability in the long run and making sure that departments had a spending plan before we just continue to provide them some appropriation.
Let me
Real
ask you
quick,
about-
I changed the view to speaker view because I was just informed that the captioning was going right across the Senate president's face. So I didn't want to do that to him. So we're going to go with the speaker view, and I want to keep the captions on. I don't even know how it happened, but I don't want it across the Senate president's face. So we're going to keep it speaker view for now. Go ahead, Charlie.
I wanted to ask both of you a question regarding the Department of Education and funding for that, that rather large department. Do you feel that there's going to have to be creative ways, as years go by, there's going to be a period of time, unless something really drastic happens, that funding for the Department of Ed will have to be really, I guess, look through a magnifying glass to see what can be and what can't be. So is there difficulties right now in the funding process for the DOE?
Well, the Department of Education usually requires a lot of lump sum funding. So they may say they need, several $1 million for a project or a program, but we don't see how that trickles down to complex or by school.
Okay.
And so that's where I think this year we took a different approach, where the education chair wanted to be a little more prescriptive in how we ended up budgeting funds for the Department of Education, because a lot of the priorities that the legislature had, the board or the superintendent maybe did not share the same enthusiasm for that priority. I'll give you one example, alternative learning centers. So alternative learning centers are schools where when students get suspended or kicked out, we still want to make sure that they receive an education. The worst thing you can do is suspend someone and have them on the streets.
Right.
So the legislature in the past had funded 2 alternative learning centers, which were not part of the base funding entirely. So that was Olamana School in Waimanalo and High Court Program in Central Oahu. And we added additional funds so that more complexes could create alternative learning centers. So there was actually one that was created in the Nanakuli Waianae complex as a result of that effort. The department had told us that they wanted to take some of that money and create one in Kauai. And that was several years went by, and we never got any type of report on how they were going to expand and create a statewide system for alternative learning centers. So this year, what we did was we actually allocated $1 million for 6 complexes in the next biennium so that we can create a program statewide for alternative learning centers. Because one of the things that the education chair and I are extremely concerned about, as well as the rest of the legislature, is the pipeline to prison. So we want to make sure that our students are going to have the education and have some fighting chance to become productive citizens, especially if they cannot continue in the current environment that they're in. We put so much emphasis on P20, but we want to make sure that there's going to be other options for students who may not be on the college track, but we got to make sure that they're going to be productive citizens and have a good learning environment, and hopefully get them on track through alternative learning centers. So that was one way where I think the legislature had to assert itself if that was something we believe was a priority, but the department did not.
And one of the challenges is that this was formerly a federally funded program. So Kauai used to have one at the old Kamakani Elementary School and one out in Anahola. And as a matter of fact, when my brother graduated from the University of Hawaii, his first 2 years of teaching was at the Alternative Learning Center at Kamakani. As the federal money went away, then we didn't have the ability to fund it. But both WAM Chair Dela Cruz and Education Chair Kidani felt it was important to create the pathways that he was talking about. And so now we're committing state funds because federal funds no longer are available to support this program.
So
So
do
if-
we?
Oh, go ahead.
So basically, these projects that they talk about, lump summing, right? So do they submit like something similar to business plans to you folks to see where the monies are spent and how it's going to be spent and what the end goal is, how they're going to achieve the end goal? Because I guess a lot of questions are coming up now that they seem like a lot of times some of these different departments just asking for money, but yet there's nothing tangible that's being seen. One of them, I think we're going to talk about it later, is the unemployment department. We talked about that the last time. Something's got to be seen to start convincing people, hey, this really works. So that's my question. Is there a business plan in effect for a lot of these different departments?
So different departments have different approaches. The Department of Education is 25% of the state's budget. 25%. So we're talking, billions of dollars. They may not have a plan that tracks every single dollar in the entire budget. Like I mentioned, they're probably going to do some lump sum. But the education chair took a lot more interest in trying to follow the money, as well as the rest of the subject matter chairs this year, which is why in the ESSER bill, the legislature determined how the department would spend the funds because they didn't have a plan. So when the department is asking for money and they don't have a plan, that's, I think, an opportunity where the legislature can now prioritize those dollars for the department.
And the other thing, depending on which lump sum you're talking about, because you'll hear a lot about how the legislature added to the weighted student formula. And what happens is each school is given an amount of money based upon their enrollment. And so if you talk to Principal Angwai at Waimea High School, she can pull out her butcher block paper and diagram exactly how she's going to go forward with the money she has, what are the programs that they're running. We visited with Marlene Leary at Kauai High School 2 years ago. The Ways and Means Committee was very impressed talking to her. And we had Danny Hamada at Kapa'a High School, who was senior as far as years of experience. He worked hard to train Tommy John Cox, who is now his successor. But each one of them have a little different plan based on their student body, based on their enrollment, their community, and their needs. So when we've got good principals like we have on Kauai, then you sit with them, and when we go and visit, then they're able to give us great detail about all the different programs that they're running with the money that they had. And then for a school like Waimea, which at times had the smallest enrollment of the 3 high schools, then there was a fund that would assist low enrollment schools so that you could ensure every student was having a quality education. And if you were smaller, you weren't left out because you didn't get enough money on the weighted student formula. So as far as that goes, if you've got engaged principals who communicate well, like we do on Kauai, then they've got a good system in place of how they're spending the money they're getting.
Yeah, a lot of the concern with the education chair this year was more of the state departments or the state divisions within the Department of Education. So there's OSIS and there's the IT. So the IT division for Department of Education has about 140 people, which is a lot larger than the state Office of Information Technology. So how do we reconcile that, and how do we hold the department accountable in making sure that all those positions are actually needed and that students are getting the tech assistance that they need for their education? So what do we have to do so that Department of Education is not so top heavy and we can bring those dollars down to the complexes? That was a huge discussion this session.
I'm seeing some questions. Reina, if you could, I don't understand the question. I mean, I can read it, but I don't understand it. Why did the DOH and DOE end the contact and outside contacted agencies assist students with special needs, students assisted by RNs? Maybe you want to rephrase that, Reina, and we can try to get that answered for you. But the other two big topics, I think, that I have been receiving information or questions on, obviously the rail with the new finding that the wheels are too small for the tracks, and understanding that's a city and county project, but funded by GE money. And then the other one is the TAT, the recent bill that passed where the TAT was going to be now the county's responsibility to charge basically a tourist tax up to 3%. But what are your thoughts on the rail? And then we can talk about the TAT after that.
So one of the things I think is that rail is not just a transportation solution, it's also a way for us to direct development. So if we're going to keep the country, especially where I'm from, then you want to make sure that we're going to focus development in the urban core along the rail line. So I really think that Hart and the city has to take a hard look at how they're going to create more development incentives for affordable housing and commercial activity along the rail line to hopefully help subsidize or do public-private partnership to continue the construction. You know, it's this, as you guys know, the city has so many different powers that they can help. There's some zoning powers. They can create tax increment financing. They can do community facilities districts. They can do public-private partnership. I don't understand why the private sector isn't helping to build some of the rail stations where when you go to other places, a lot of the rail stations are in a shopping center or at in the convention center or in some kind of complex stadium where the private sector helped assist building. So that's the kind of public-private partnership I'm hoping that the city is going to start to look at.
I think, Senator, but with with this recent thing with the wheels and the tracks, I mean, if you're a private business, how do you, I mean, wouldn't you be afraid to invest in that project where, so much of this is being uncovered? I don't know how much it's going to cost to rectify. They say if you put the correct size wheels, it'll be too heavy for the weight capacity of the tracks. I mean, at some point, what is how much?
Yeah, I'm not condoning those guys, but because that's ridiculous. I mean, I think all of us are disappointed.
As a private business guy, that I agree, the private sector should be part of this process. But how do you get them to trust in a project that, my God, has had so many problems that I'd be kind of leery to invest money in that project if I'm the private sector.
Yeah, so I had heard that the Hart director understood that they have a major, she's new, she just started probably several months ago. And the comments she made were that they know that they have a credibility problem. It would be difficult for them to come back to the legislature to ask for any assistance at this point, especially since they have some issues they got to deal with. And secondly, they still haven't, in my mind, worked with the private sector enough to try to get the private sector to pay for more of the construction. They got a lot to do, but it's going to take some hard work. I'm hopeful it's built already. I mean, I drive from Kapolei or to Kapolei sometimes to town, and I can see the rail. When it would be too difficult at this point to start to tear it down. And as I mentioned, the bigger picture is that it's a development tool. It's a way that we can focus growth and try to get some affordable housing built. So they're going to have to try to get the rail back on track, so to speak, and hopefully resolve some of those issues quickly, so that the not just the public confidence, but the legislature's confidence in rail increases.
And, you know, relative to the legislature's confidence, it's clear to me that we weren't given accurate information the last time around. The numbers that they talked about simply were not true. And I was somewhat surprised because we ran the stress number at a 3% growth rate when we were experiencing 4.5% and 5% growth rate. So there was some built-in contingency into the plan that we approved as far as how much financing we put in. And nobody from the city ever said, oh, we really appreciate what you guys did. And this was a big help. They were complaining every step of the way, even after the bill was approved. And I was a little, you know, baffled, upset, confused by the response. And now when I hear what the new director is saying, then it's clear they were upset because they didn't get enough money. And they knew that they were eventually going to have to face the music. And so that's going to be a real difficult conversation if they try to come across the street to talk to us, you know, when we just look at them and say, how can I believe any number you put on the table when you haven't given me anything that was accurate?
You know, let me ask you, so, you know, the comment was made, you know, it's up already. It'd be worse to tear it down. And I agree, because so much went into it. But how can anything that enormous not have an on-ground auditor day to day watching? I mean, I've worked on some projects before, like building golf courses, and, you know, that's different. But at the same token, the owner of that course is given, you know, is given a play-by-play, whether, you know, it's coming in on time, whether it's coming in on budget, you know, that whole thing. And then this thing is so enormous that it's just like just throwing money into something that I just wonder if it'll ever be able to pay back itself over a given time.
Yeah, so the way they funded the construction is based on the revenues they receive from the GET and now part of the TAT. So they haven't taken out any bond loans yet, because basically the revenues is paying cash for the construction. It's out of whack. The numbers, you know, as the Senate President mentioned, that they were presented, and we tried to be of assistance at the time. So that's real unfortunate. But HART does have a board. The HART budget is provided to the mayor so that the mayor can include that as part of his budget package to the city council. So there are levels of accountability that I think people probably have to be a lot more aggressive and pay attention at all those different levels. The HART board meetings, whatever budget items are provided to the mayor, and whatever budget that the mayor now will present to the city council probably needs to be reviewed several times and explained to the public, so that everybody's on the same page and hopefully can build some trust back.
Thank you.
Oh, definitely challenging times, and I know, you know, they have relied on the GE and the TAT, as well as federal monies that may be in danger as well. So I think, you know, they got to pay attention. It seems like the new director of HART, I mean, since she took over, I mean, the public is learning a whole lot more about what's happening.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, it's the integrity of the project, and I'm not so sure. Even if they went out to sell some bonds, you know, I don't know how many who would invest. I'd be afraid, to be honest, simply because of the track record of this, and no pun intended, but the track record of this project. So I'm concerned, and I live on Kauai, but nonetheless, it impacts the state to some degree, everybody, and yeah, it's just one that I'm really starting to pay attention to. Then the other one was the TAT, and I'm just curious as to where that's going and what's the. I haven't heard anything from the governor either on that one, but any idea of what his take on that is?
Oh, I'm not, I'm not sure. I know I read in the paper that one mayor, um, the Maui County saying that they would like to execute upon that and try to implement a county tax on Maui. The Big Island mayor has said the opposite. I think the other two counties are still reviewing it. The reason why this came about was the governor had already suspended the allocations to all counties for the TAT. So the counties weren't going to get their TAT anyway because of the emergency proclamation. So that was a no-go to begin with for this year, and I'm not sure if next year. In addition to that, the counties were asking for some in the past. I mean, we're all county guys before. We're asking for more home rule and the ability to raise their own revenues. The other interesting component was the fact that for Oahu, at least, we started to move some of the services that the state was subsidizing, like EMS, slowly transitioning it over to the county. So if the county is now going to absorb those services, part of it is that you just can't give them an unfunded mandate. You have to at least provide some source of funding so they can pay for these services.
Senator Kouchi?
Just if the governor disagrees with this, then he's got to find $103 million to go balance the budget if and when the counties would get their share, because the net effect of the veto is that the counties will continue to retain their share once he lifts the suspension he's put in place. So it's difficult, but at this point under the home rule, I'd always asked for the ability to levy my tax that was dedicated. The other thing is as the funds grow, the collections were to grow, the county's share grows. Right now, the 103 was capped. So even as revenues started to grow, with the collections, the counties didn't see more money. And this is an opportunity for them to keep up. And, the amounts are ensuring that each county would get at least as much as they got from the TAT, if not more. And the hue and cry has been, visitors need to pay their fair share for the impacts.
Yeah, and I think that holds even more so now, even during the pandemic, and as visitor arrivals starting to increase, it's only going to get more and more, and the impacts doesn't get any less. So those funds are going to be necessary. I'm not sure, and I haven't spoken to the mayor here, but I just wonder if we could get those mechanisms in place. But at the end of the day, the 3%. I would guess, and I haven't done the numbers, Senator Kouchi, you probably know this, but the 3%, if the county of Kauai went and opted for the 3%, that would probably, and just my brain going off right now, be an increase in revenues over what they currently get, correct?
I thought they said 1% for Kauai equated to $6 million. So that would be 18 instead of the between 12 and 14 million that Kauai has normally gotten in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to go anything less than the 3% would be foolish, simply because the administrative cost for 1% is the same as it is for 3%. And I can honestly say 3% is not going to change a visitor's mind on coming to Kauai or Maui or Oahu or Big Island. So I haven't spoken to anybody yet on that here, but I'd be interested to see what the county's position is.
And then some good news in the paper today. Isaac Choi, who was recently confirmed toward the end of the session as the director of the tax department, has indicated how much additional revenue they've collected from the illegal vacation rentals, getting people to come back into compliance, getting the back taxes and, the additional money they're looking at getting. I know, Senator Dela Cruz and Representative Luke worked hard on getting additional bodies in the Department of Taxation. I think they're up to 13 dedicated employees to go after the illegal vacation rentals and get them into compliance. In the article, they said that some of the platforms, without identifying anybody by name, have been more cooperative in getting information that allows DOTAX to go about getting the people into compliance. And I think the largest one I saw was like a $300,000 or $400,000 bill for back taxes for quite a period of time. And so, to Isaac Joy, we appreciate the efforts that he's putting in. And then this will make sure that everybody is paying their fair share. Right now, you have more occupancy in vacation rentals than hotels in this current environment. So we need to make sure that those visitors are paying their fair share for the impacts that they're creating on the infrastructure.
Wow.
So I got
Okay.
I got some quick revenue numbers from DOTEX. So Kauai right now gets what 14.5% of the 103 million. So that's about 14,935,000. In fiscal year 22, they're looking at 11.3 million. Fiscal year 23, 14.4. Fiscal year 24, 16.2. Fiscal year 25, 18.1. Fiscal year 26, 19.6. And a fiscal year 27, 21.1. So as time goes on, it's gonna be much larger than what as the Senate President described, than what the Kauai currently gets.
The concern, it's only a four-year bill though, right? It sunsets after 4 years. And no one knows what happens in 4 years, but is there a safety valve in there where the legislature would not amend that in the next 4 years or altered in any way as to impact the revenues that the counties could generate?
No, so that part is in perpetuity. The 2030 is the 1% on the TAT.
So if you remember when we passed the rail bill, there was that.
So when you
of
look at the
TAT
bill,
added
it
to
and everything, yeah.
Oh, sorry, you froze up a little bit there, Donovan. You froze up a little while.
The president had mentioned that
Donovan was saying that
the
when
2030 deadline.
Go ahead, Donovan.
The 2030 deadline is based on the AT for the 1%.
Got it. Senator Kouchi?
Oh, no, and then, the other, I guess the other part that, we were talking about last week, I mentioned in the new tourism paradigm, we looked at KA Beach and the permit system and, having to pay a fee to go in for the non-residents. And I had mentioned that Senator English took that back to East Maui at Wainapanapa State Park, and they were making, somewhere like 90,000 a month. Well, Senator English was in cleaning up his office, and he talked to me about making sure that his Wainapanapa program would continue, but also to see how we're going to better implement this statewide. And the latest report is they're projecting that the fees, because it's only parking fees, so there'll be an entrance fee that they're going to start collecting, I think, either May 15, June 1st. So they're going to get 3.5 million a year in revenue from that park. And again, these are fees that we're charging the visitors. You show your state of Hawaii driver's license, you're not being charged to use the facility. And, you know, with this model, they said so far the results in Maui, and I haven't even had a chance to brief Senator Dela Cruz on this, you know, because we're looking at how we're going to, you know, reinvest in our natural resources. So at this point, the visitors who have been coming through, there haven't been any issues, you know, and at this point, they're used to paying fees for the parks that they visit on the mainland. And so it's not something that's unusual or something that's out of place when they're being assessed the fees. And so I think this is another way that hopefully will generate the revenue to reinvest into places like Ke'e, Koke'e, Polehale, and other areas across the state that are being heavily used and you know, underfunded.
Is there a tracking system that we know about that the HTA is using to kind of like keep a track on our visitor count? I mean, it's obvious that they do, but when we start moving into areas about adding additional fees on usage and all of that, how much does it affect, you know, the tourist count? Because, you know, it seemed pretty evident that when everything was closed, all we heard was, you know, we're dependent on tourism. And when there's no real diversion to go in other forms of generating income on a larger scale, I'm just wondering if we start doing all of that. And I'm not trying to imply anything. I'm just wondering if we do start putting all of these mechanisms in place to charge, if there's anything that tracks the movement, if tourism continually stays on a steady rise, or it plateaus, or it takes a dive because of charging. I mean, I don't know, but I just want to throw that out to either one of you.
So we know we get numbers from visitor arrivals through airlines. So that's a number that we get. Also, hotel occupancy rates, we can get that. But in regards to the type of visitor that we want, I think the collective thought has always been that you want a visitor that spends more and has less of an environmental impact.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want necessarily the visitor on the cheap. You don't want those guys who may go to, you know, the Airbnb, go to the grocery store, go cook everything, not go to our restaurants, only go to the free hikes, only go to the free beaches, and then they may not, in the end, pay their fair share. So who we're trying to attract has to change. And how we go about doing that has to be something that HTA takes a lot more seriously, because we're going to want a visitor that spends more, but has less of an impact on the environment.
I think a lot of the start of that comes from really the airlines. You know, when they start offering cheap fares, that's what you'll get, right? And I know we cannot control transportation, but I think there needs to be some kind of dialogue with them that says, hey, you know, this is what we're trying to accomplish here. But, you know, when you train out fares that's so cheap,
Yeah,
it's just so attractive to the one that says, well, I really don't have much, but I can make it to Hawaii.
Well, and
Senator
that's,
Kouchi?
but no, and that's part of the, you know, the problem when you say rebuilding. Before the pandemic hit, even leading voices in the visitor industry were saying that 10 million plus was not a good number for us. You know, we were not able to deal with that level, and our you know, life experience was being adversely impacted, and we needed to get a better management plan. So this is all part of, I believe, the reset, and to make sure that we are funding you know, the support for our natural resources, supporting our infrastructure, and what are the mechanisms that are going to pay for it. And as we slowly build back, you know, we'll have to make those decisions, and we'll have to make some pricing determinations if they seem to be deterring it. But if there's a few people who decide not to come because of that, I think, at this point, there was a collective thought that, we needed to better manage that number.
Yeah, and we had Mr. DeFries on our show, and he shared with us the strategic plan for basically redefining tourism, managing tourism versus promoting tourism, and it's just unfortunately, I mean, I think because of opening up and now the gates are open, it's going to be tough to try to manage this wild horse that is bucking, and I don't know how we do that. I mean, we talked. In fact, Mr. DeFries and the HTA frequently refers to the project that was done out in Haena at Ke'e and at Limahuli, and how successful that program was, where they basically limited the number of people that could come in, limited the number of parking stalls, limited the access, and it was on a reservation system. But I haven't seen any of that. I haven't heard any of that, and we're already experiencing the inflow of visitors, and it's growing every day. So my fear is that it's going to be too late to try to. I guess what I'm trying to say is the horses have left the barn, and now we're putting up the fence, and it's kind of late. And I don't know how we fix that. I don't know if we can fix that. I think the fees, when we travel, especially when I was on the council, we were in many places that you had to pay to go see things, whether it was an attraction or a public space. You definitely had to pay for parking everywhere you went. And Hawaii has been relatively free for our visitors for forever. So I think that is a start, is figuring out where can we assess fees for the sole purpose of the impact or remediating the impact that these visitors create on our island. And that's going to be a tough call, tough challenge.
Yeah, and going back to the dedicated funding that HTA used to have, some of those monies, we can allocate toward DLNR. We really tried to add a lot more positions for dole care officers so that they can manage the trails, enforce activities on the beach or things like that, where the visitor seems to be going because they don't have to pay.
And getting better or assisting them to better, manage the area that they're responsible for. It's interesting. Representative Morikawa introduced the bill, asked me to introduce it on the Senate side to look at permitting some kind of ability to drive to and from on the beach in Polihali with permits. And I get so many emails that tell me about, we've had a lifelong right to drive on the beach. Why are you taking away our freedom and doing all of this? And the law is clear. It's never been legal to drive a vehicle on any state beach. And the county allows on county parks at the beach to drive to drop off your equipment and then go back to the parking lot. But there's no law on the books on Kauai that allows the vehicle to be parked on the beach and be there overnight and, for any kind of duration, and so at this point, we've just not had enough officers to enforce it. Charlie was involved in doing the security at the Waimea Plantation cottages, and he would call me on numerous occasions trying to see what we could do. But, unless the officer is actually physically out there when somebody is driving on the beach, there was nothing we could really do. He got license plates, he found out who the individuals were, names, everything else, and there was very little we can do. But is it an illegal activity, relative to the law? Yes, it is. And, Representative Morikawa was sensitive to people who had been utilizing the beach in that way and was trying to find a reasonable compromise, and people thought that she was taking away rights when she was actually trying to add to their ability to use the beach.
Well, that whole process, I kind of likened it to, Daytona Beach, but the way they have it there is there's a controlled section of the beach that everybody can drive. They cannot go outside of that controlled section. So you'll see that pathway along the beaches. When I was involved with that enforcement side on Waimea, the only problem we had is, you get people on the beach. I can see them dropping off the equipment for fishing, but then it got to a point that they start drinking. And when they leave, all they like do is just race up and down the beach. And the next thing you know, the quads came out. And this thing would go all time of night. So I think, if something like that was ever to be allowed, that as soon as you can get a good program in place and something bad happens, it's going to have to be taken away. Because the ability of people, humans going to be humans, right? They're just going to do what they want to do. And hopefully everybody can comply, but that seems to be a real tough stretch, Mel?
It's a dangerous activity, and I to drop off your fishing gear and back, that's one thing. But when you're racing up and down a beach, there's really no use for that. It's not good for the beach, not good for safety, but yeah. We got about 5 minutes left, and I kind of wanted to hear you guys' perspective on where we're headed as it relates to the pandemic. We're starting to see the opening. We're starting to see today. Honolulu announced that now the kids can play sports and parents can watch, and numbers are still we're still 3 digits and high 2 digits. We're at about 40 or so percent vaccinated, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on as our state moves forward. Are we on track? Are we moving too fast? Should we slow down? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, one of the things is people need to get vaccinated. That's really important because you end up protecting yourself and you end up protecting your community and your family. But even when you're vaccinated, we still have to respect everyone else. The governor still has the mask mandates. We still have to do social distancing, graduations and things like that. Lots of people are starting to evolve under these new norms. I know at Lelahua next week, Friday, the graduating class is going to be graduating at the football field. And I think they're going to allow 2 people per graduate. So those adjustments are still having to be made. We'll be out of it at some point. But as you mentioned, there are still numbers that are kind of high, and it's uncomfortable to see that the number kind of floating in that area. But we as individuals have to be a lot more conscious and a lot more respectful so that we can help slow it down. The one area I feel we really got to focus on is still the airport. That's one area where as visitors come in, we want to make sure that they either are vaccinated or they do take a test, because that's something that, we have to pay attention to so that we can stop any spread of any new variants.
Well, adding on to that, my question is, when we have the lieutenant governor giving pretty much a different read on it, that daily, every day we see some of the comments on our feed that it gives a confusing message because the governor has one and then the lieutenant governor has another. Will there ever be a time that they both can be together, the messaging that they want to give out? Because it's creating a lot of confusion for many right now.
Well, that's kind of above my pay grade as to how the governor and the lieutenant governor are going to get in sync with messaging. But the person that we really should look to is Director Libby Char. So she's the Director of Health. That's who I think we should all be looking at for a consistent message as to how we need to respond or how we need to act so that we can function accordingly.
And I think that's what the governor is doing. I think the governor is listening to Libby Char. And as far as I can tell, you don't hear Libby often in the public, but when you do, I mean, she's consistent with what the governor is trying to do and saying, and he's taking a lot of flack for being safe. I happen to agree with the governor's position on the mask mandates, and our vaccination numbers aren't where it needs to be yet, and herd immunity is relatively far away. So I agree with that. I think we should be listening to Libby Char. We just don't hear from her. And the lieutenant governor, it seems to contradict what the governor is saying. So I'm not sure who he's listening to. And I don't mean to bring him up, but I mean, that's just the reality as a member of the public who watches the news every morning and hears a different story from the lieutenant governor than we hear from the governor. And I think that's causing a lot of problems.
Well,
Okay.
I can answer your question though. December 5th, 2022.
Okay.
That's when the next governor will be sworn in, and then I think we'll be on a clearer message. I don't think that it's going to change. The lieutenant governor, has a more aggressive position on where he thinks we should be and why we should. And the governor has been conservative. So, do I think we're too fast, too slow ahead? We're not going too fast. Governor Ige has never been interested in going too fast. He's always taken a very measured and cautious approach in the decisions that he's made. I think that, with the amount of people that have been vaccinated, when you look at what is going on, even if you wind up now getting COVID, there's less hospitalizations than you were having early on. Where is our bed capacity? Where are, the ICU beds at? How many ventilators do we have? And right now, none of our health system has been compromised, or we're not close to being overwhelmed. But, it's easy to see that go south in a heartbeat. So that's why, I think the governor has the mask mandate still in place, and we're still going slowly. I've talked to my friends in California. They're reopening fully, shortly, and places across the South, South Dakota, Iowa, the red states, they've taken a much more aggressive reopening posture. And so, Hawaii is not up there in being aggressive in reopening. And so, that's kind of where we're at. But I do believe that, the tier system does need to go. The tier system was created when there were no vaccinations available. So that was the best metrics to use for the defense that we had. Now with the level of vaccination that we've had, now that we look at the hospitalization rate being lower, that, there probably is something different that we can use to, make the determination of just how much should be opened up, what should we be doing. And, at this point, when Donovan mentions the airport, I have a friend who flew in from Florida last week. And for somebody who's a frequent traveler, he went to a CVS to be tested to come to Hawaii. They're a trusted partner, but they administered the wrong test. So when he got here, there's no option to go to somewhere to get a test, wait for the result. You don't have the test. So after 24 hours, he got back on the plane, went back to Florida, and, wrote me a lengthy email, incredibly disappointed, upset. But, we would still say those things are on the website. You got to go look at it. And, part of it is, how could you go to CVS in Florida and they wound up not giving you the correct test for you to come to Hawaii, if that's what you said. And they say, oh, they feel like heroes at the airport because they protected their island. But I mean, that's what they're doing. So I haven't responded to my friend's email, but it is what it is. And I see another couple from the mainland when I got into the office this afternoon, 2-page letter. And they said, oh, I'm sure if government officials came by, they'd just wave them through. Well, Mayor Kawakami gave no exemptions to state legislators when he opted out of safe travels in December. And so I stayed on Kauai the end of November, the whole month of December, and went back to the legislature in January, did everything by Zoom because I would have been subject to the 14-day quarantine. So I can tell you that there were no exemptions for us to go back and forth and do anything when we weren't in session.
Okay. Well, one last question. I know we're running out of time real fast. Some people are asking about the unemployment. That seems to be another hot button topic. Some people are still asking when the unemployment office open? When will the system be changed to kind of not experience what we experienced during this pandemic? Because there's going to be other emergencies that may arise. And how fast will it take the unemployment division to get up to speed with anything new that's over the horizon for them? So anyone want to tackle that question?
So I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we did put quite a bit of money for unemployment in the budget. I'm tempted to say around $100 million actually, but I got to verify that so that we can.
I think that's close.
So that we can look at all the different components of UI and make sure that they're either updated, upgraded, become more efficient, and hire the staffing that they need.
Okay.
Is there any, I know we asked Senator Kouchi this last week, but a lot of the people are wondering when are the offices going to open again? Many of the county offices are open. I mean, it's by appointment only. I had my mother-in-law, took her to renew her driver's license on Kauai last week. It was flawless. It went right through, smooth and efficient. But unemployment is one office that no one can talk to a human or see someone. And I know we asked Senator Kouchi this, but when can people expect those doors to open and where they can actually talk to a human?
That we would have to check with the director. I mean, we can follow up on that. I just want to point out though, I mean, when people are confused as to who they listen to, there's really only one person that can sign the emergency proclamation. Only one. So when you have to decide who you're going to listen to, it's the person that's going to end up signing the emergency proclamation.
Mm-hmm.
Understood.
Straightforward.
Let me put this thing back. We'll get a little bit of captions across the Senate president's face, but that's okay. They saw him in the flesh earlier. So appreciate you guys. We'll give you guys some time for a share. Donovan, you want to say a message to all our viewers? And
no, I want to
words of encouragement, words of whatever.
Well, just want to thank you guys for always allowing us to be on. The Senate president probably doesn't get enough credit because he's normally having to take the blame for so many things that probably not his kuleana or even on his radar. But he really tries his best to make sure that he looks out for Kauai and at the same time supports the members of the Senate so that we can all do our job. And I think the Senate really does appreciate his leadership. Because of that, we have a very independent group of senators that are able to do their job to the best of their ability. So, through his leadership, we were able to have the COVID committee. We were able to get the resources we needed and the help we needed for session. And now we have this accountability committee. So his foresight and his wanting to do more for the public is very much appreciated. And we want to thank you guys for all your transparency with this show. You guys brought up a lot of good issues over the last year, and I think probably made a huge difference, more than you realize.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Senator Kouchi.
Well, I just appreciate Senator Dela Cruz. He used to be on the Hawaii Visitors Bureau contract or Kauai Visitors Bureau. So he's been coming to Kauai before he was elected. And as you know, Mel, some of the city council members, they didn't have time for HSAC and coming out to, the neighbor islands because they were big city, and, County of Honolulu council members and too busy. But Senator Dela Cruz, when he was on the council, always attended, always came out. And so we've got somebody who's sitting at Ways and Means who really knows a lot about Kauai. He regularly visits, and he also is going to be in the news shortly on Kauai. When he was CIP chair in 2015, I asked for his support, and he put the $5 million in to build the adolescent drug treatment facility. When it looked like it wasn't going to happen, I went back to see him. He was familiar with the project, and he put 1.3 million in this year's budget for the facility, with Chair Luke working with the representatives from Kauai. And so we're looking at Lance Sagawa and the state hospitals and the Department of Health really taking the lead and working with the county on how we're going to make this work. And so he's been a great champion for the Kauai projects, but the projects that are going to make a big difference for every resident in this state. So I'm very appreciative of the knowledge he has on Kauai, the contacts and people he has, and the aloha that he shares for us. And then I would be remiss after Mel talked about his University of Hawaii shirt. Charlie, your personal shopper did an excellent job. You look really great in that aloha shirt this evening. So you are outshining all three of us with as the best dressed.
Well, I thought tonight was Aloha Friday. That's why I didn't know. But when I woke up,
but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Charlie.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much to our two esteemed guests, Senator Donovan Dela Cruz and Senate President Ron Kouchi. It is so enlightening to hear that there's an accountability component now that I think has been long overdue, but better late than never, right? And so now's the time that we can see. Tonight is the first time I got to see what we talked about is a lot of intricate moving parts going on, and I can see why you have to really pay attention. And I'm just so glad that both of you came on to explain those moving parts. And as for the comments that you gave, thank you so very much, Senator Dela Cruz. Mel and I, we just try to work hard for the people and just try to give them, something. And like we always tell them, hey, if you don't like it, wait for the next segment, just move on. And I just want to thank our viewers out there for always coming back time in and time out, especially being with us. I figure they get tired looking at our mugs after a year, but hey, they're still on with us. So thank you very, very much. Mel?
Thank you, Charlie. Hey, I see a couple of people asking about possible runs for governor. I'm not going to ask any of these gentlemen and put them on the spot unless they're willing to step up and say it. But if not, you guys message them on Facebook and ask them. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot.
Bell, Joy is resting her knee in the condo, and if I don't say in a clear voice that I am not interested in running for governor, the only thing I would be considering is running for re-election. When I get home, then I'm going to get that crutch on my head. So I'm happy to answer the question for me. And we're still hoping for grandchildren eventually, and would like to devote some time to that. So in case Dan and Katie are watching, I found a way to work it in.
Well, at least I know I never put Senator Dela Cruz on the spot. You just did. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Unless the senator wants to respond, but I'm not gonna. Okay. Both of you guys have been mentors for me personally. Donovan my God, going back for a long time when you were still on the council, taught me the ropes of HSAC, NACO, and I appreciate and respect the two of you so much. Senator Kouchi, my God, it wasn't always, we never always agreed. I mean, we agreed way more than we didn't, but sometimes, tough love. Kouchi would give me tough love. But I just want to say that two of you have been mentors, really, for me, and I just want to say thank you personally. Thank you, and it's just so impressive to hear you all, both of you here, Ways and Means, Senate President, on the Mel and Charlie Show, sharing with our viewers, because really, it's hard to get that, like Charlie said, that intricate details, the intimate discussions. It's not a newscast. It's not something where you got to worry about the extracting 30 seconds out of a 10-minute interview. This is live and in color. So we appreciate you taking the time, and just want to say thank you for the work that you do. To our viewers, again, thank you. It's always a pleasure and honor to have these guys on, and we just appreciate them so much as well. Wednesday, Dr. Akhtar Murtaza will be on.
The other way around. It's Murtaza Akhtar.
Yeah, he's the mad doctor. You see him on CNN. He's a little nuts. He's going to be on Wednesday night. You see him on CNN. He's amazing. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but he emailed me and said he's ready to come back on. So we're ready. And then Friday, guys, we're going to have a very special show. We're going to have, we have a crisis right now here in Kauai, and I'm sure statewide, with foster parenting. We have, because of the pandemic, because of the situation that's going on, we are in dire need of foster parents. So we're going to have the representatives from the fostering programs here on Kauai on to basically plea for assistance. So that'll be on Friday night. So thank you again. We'll see you guys Wednesday night with the Mad Doctor. You guys all stay safe. Appreciate you guys. God bless. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Aloha.
Aloha.